For those of you who are familiar with Google Sheets, I wanted to just show you that we could take the class survey data from a spreadsheet and get the regression equation pretty quickly, a little less painful than what we had to do entering the data manually onto the calculator. So I've provided 6 columns of data here, and in order to do the regression, we need to decide whether we think there are 2 of these questions that might have a relationship. So you could come up with a theory. I showed you before that how old you are when you got your first smartphone seems like it would depend on your age. Older people got their smartphone later, and so if this depends on this, then we're treating this as our x and this as our y. It was a pretty good relationship, and if I want to treat this as x and this as y, I'm going to insert a column to the left, and then I'll just cut and paste this over here so that it's right beside it. And then I have my x and my y, just like L1 and L2, and I can click to highlight these 2 columns, and then I just go to Insert Chart, and it already defaulted to a scatter plot. When I was doing this earlier, it was making a line graph, and I had to tell it to make a scatter plot. So that creates a pretty decent scatter plot there, and it does look like as you get older, your age at first smartphone also gets older. If you want to have a regression line in here, it only takes a few clicks. You go to Customize, Series, and then I scroll down and I click Trend Line, and then I go and change the label to Use Equation, and this gives me the slope and the y-intercept for the trend line for this data. And then I can even tell it to show r squared, and it's 0.8581. It doesn't give me r, but I could do the square root of that. What is the square root of 0.8581? Oh, it's just 0.851. Okay, so the square root would be 0.92. So that's a pretty strong positive regression or correlation between age and age at first smartphone. I can move this aside or just delete this graph. If I had any other theories, maybe I'll copy this back here and then come up with a theory that older people drink more coffee. So how many cups of coffee you drink depends on your age. This could be a totally terrible theory, but I'll go ahead and insert another chart. And it's doing a line graph. I want a scatter plot, and it is not doing it the way I want. It's putting, that's pretty weird. Use row 1 as headers. That's not what I want. Did this to me once before, and I thought I had fixed it, but let me try again. Delete. So again, I'll do insert chart. That's not cooperating with me. Change it to scatter plot. It's putting the points above each other instead of pairing them, which is what I really want. And I don't know if I know how to fix that. I will show you, delete this, that for the baby weights data, I was able to get the same result that we got on our graphing calculator. So again, down here I've got different tabs: survey data, baby weights, and car prices. So you will see that I got the same results as before. I just select these 2 columns, insert chart, there's my scatter plot, and then I click Customize, Series, Trend Line, and then I ask it to label the trend line with the equation, and show r squared. And so all of that agrees exactly with what our calculator gave us. So that's a little reassuring. I'm annoyed by what's happening here. Let me try another theory. Let's say that how many hours you sleep depends on how much you exercise, because I have heard that exercising helps you sleep better. Insert chart. And I'll change it to a scatter plot. Okay, this is working correctly. It's putting the exercise here and how much you sleep over here. This is not looking like a very linear pattern, but I'll go ahead and ask it to create a trend line and ask it to label it. And my trend line is almost 0, which indicates no relationship, which does not agree with what I've heard, that exercising does help you sleep. That's a slightly negative, so it's a teeny bit saying that the more you exercise, the less you sleep, but the slope is so tiny it's basically 0. So this is not what we want to have happen when we're doing research. We want to see that there's a relationship one way or the other. And when you get something like no relationship, then you have nothing to talk about. And honestly, that happens to me a lot with this survey data. I'm coming up with these really inconclusive results. I'll do one more here. Insert chart. This is for exercising and how much you work. And it's doing that thing again where it puts one above the other. Okay, that's better. So this is showing that I'm theorizing that how much you exercise depends on how much you work. Because I know that when I'm working too much, I have a hard time getting time to exercise. Customize series trend line. So this is the weird thing, is that it's actually increasing. So the more you work, the more you exercise is actually what this data is suggesting. Now, the slope is pretty small, so there's not a very strong relationship. This is a pretty weak correlation. Like if r squared is 0.018, well, the square root of 0.018 is 0.13, so we have a 13% correlation. It's not very good. So basically, it's not an impact, but there's a teeny increase. The more you work, the more you exercise. So I don't know how to explain that. Maybe you're a busy person, but you somehow know that you need to exercise, and so you make it happen. But it's not sloping downwards at any rate. So that's how you use Google Sheets for regression. And you can decide if you like that better than your calculator, but your calculator is all you're going to have when you're taking a test.